Nigerian energy giant Oando Plc has suspended petrol importation as the Dangote Refinery's domestic fuel supply transforms the country's downstream market. This strategic move was informed by a 20% drop in Oando's trading revenue to 2.5 trillion naira in the first 9 months of 2025, down from 3.2 trillion naira in 2024. Despite revenue pressures, profit after tax surged 164% to 210 billion naira. The 650,000 barrel per day Dangote facility, operational since 2024, now dominates Nigeria's fuel market. We have Gbolahan Olojede, financial expert, joining us now for the conversation. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning. Nice to be on the program.
Yes, great to have you. And just 5 months ago, sometime in June, we had Dangote coming out to say that there was going to be a major overhaul and shakedown in the downstream oil and gas sector. Just how much is changing and shifting, and how are companies operating in that sector like Oando adjusting to some of these changes?
Well, of course, he made a move to control his own logistics, his own distribution logistics by bringing in, vehicles that will distribute, but that runs on CNG. The vehicle run on CNG. CNG is a much more cost-effective way of running those trucks. So, in a way, that was phenomenal. In fact, there was a panic, more or less like a panic in the industry about what would be the effect of those trucks. However, I think it's just the first batch that is in. There is definitely much more. I think the first 1.5 million. I mean, 1,500. So it's going to 4,000. I think even 10,000 further down the lane. So from his own business cost profile, it is possible that he's already reaping the fruit, because the difference between fueling using CNG and fueling using diesel or other fuel is wide apart. So for his own cost profile, I want to believe that he had already started to enjoy the benefit of what he has done. What is yet to be seen, though, is how that has dramatically changed the entire space of fuel logistics in Nigeria. I don't think it has significantly affected anything from other participants' perspective.
Okay, interesting. So let's talk about Oando's latest move, their decision to halt petrol imports. What does that reflect about their strategy and, what's going on in the sector downstream?
I think it's a smart, well-expected move, so to say. There is an impending tax for importation. It has not been implemented. I think there's still some debate around that. So under that kind of a taxation regime, it will make sense for not just Oando. Oando seems to have made up its mind already. Not just Oando, but other players looking at the implication of that taxation and how it will affect their own cost profile and competitiveness.
Right. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how companies continue to adapt to that. Mr. Olojede, are you there with us? All right. Hopefully we're able to get him back on with the conversation. But of course, there's that ongoing debate, the 15% impending taxation on imported petroleum products. Whether or not we'll see through with it, whether or not it will be investigated, I think it waits to be determined. But the debate is, of course, heating day by day. And it looks like some of these organizations are adjusting in line with that, especially with this latest move from Oando away from imported product. Of course, there are still questions whether or not Dangote can meet local demand, but that as well waits to be determined. Do we have the data? Of course, there's that vote of confidence from the organization that yes, they are and will be able to meet local demand. So there's no cause for alarm or no reason to sweat. But again, The consumers are at the center of it all. What does this mean for us? We're going to break in the immediate. I'll be back to pick up the conversation in just a moment. Stay tuned. A strategic pause on petrol imports due to rising local production from Oando Plc. We do have Gbolahan Olojede, financial expert, providing us a breakdown and more detail on this conversation. Before the break, you were talking about the ongoing debates and the impending 15% taxation on imported petroleum products and how that is affecting shifts within the downstream sector at the moment. I think it would be interesting to get or understand where you stand on this ongoing debate.
I've tried to pitch my tent somewhere, but I found out I don't have the full information to make the right judgment. And here is it. Number one question is, why should we need to protect Dangote Refinery? It is a brand new refinery, so the issue of archaic equipment and all the rest should not be there. It is a large-scale refinery, so the issue of scale is also not the problem. So the question will be, so why is it so? Because if we are saying we want to protect Dangote Refinery, it could mean that we are saying that the cost profile is higher than those of other refineries from where we go to import. So the question is, why? Why is the zone cost profile requiring a protection vis-a-vis the older refineries, some of those refineries where we go to import fuel? Some of them might be 50 years, 100 years old or something. And if they can produce at a cost that is lower, that now require us to protect Dangote Refinery from import, we must be able to ask those basic questions. So why do we need to protect it? The second part of that question will be, is it possible that it's producing a higher quality fuel? It is possible. Now, there is premium PMS, and it commands a higher price in all the markets where it is available. So if you look at the US market, for example, the difference between the lowest end and the premium quality could be as high as 10 cents. That's like 140, 150 naira difference between the premium quality and the general one. So if it's producing a higher quality, then let us know that it is because of the quality that its own price cannot compete with the import, and therefore it needs protection. That is another way to look at it. Then the third part is to say, look, if we have a refinery that could meet our own local needs, why are we still doing all this importing? Is it to compare prices? Is it to create some sort of competitiveness? Because in the course of doing importing for a product that is within the country, you are exporting jobs and incomes out there. In those refineries where they are produced, where you are importing from, you are creating jobs, you are giving them wealth, as it were. Why can't we retain that wealth here if we have refineries that can meet our own needs locally? So I don't have full information to pitch my tent either way to support that process. But I think in the course of the engagement that is going on, there will be more transparency as to what exactly is leading that charge in that direction. We have to be, we have to avoid issues of monopoly, at the same time, balance that with the need to ensure that we keep our money, keep our jobs in here in Nigeria. I'm glad that there are other private sector players that are coming on board. There is another one, there is one coming up in Ogun State. There is also the Bua Refinery. So the fear of monopoly might be down significantly down the lane. But as it is today, if we stop importation, we are left with only Dangote Refinery as the supplier of probably 90-something% of the fuel consumption in Nigeria. That sounds monopolistic.
Indeed. But then obviously it's been touted as being protectionist. We're protecting, from what they're saying, local industry, right? And then there are also questions on whether the consumer is also being protected, whether fair competition is being allowed to play out and the consumer is left to make the choice that suits them best, or the market is being crafted to favor a particular person. So from the perspective of a consumer, where do you stand with this debate?
A consumer wants the best price possible, and that is what I want as a consumer. Now, you mentioned something about choice, and as it is, if that importation tax is there and it discourages importation, then we have taken the choice off the table, essentially. In this same country, when I was much younger, we had the various categories of fuel in this country. I think about 3 different. There's the ordinary, there's the super, and I've forgotten whatever we call the third one. And they are of different quality. You give the consumer a choice if you bring that on the table. Maybe that is what we should. In one of my previous segments, I said, if Dangote is producing superior quality, premium quality, let's validate that and let him be able to price accordingly, that this is my premium quality and this is the price. Then if he has other non-premium quality that he also offered, he presents it. And we can have others put different prices on the table. But as it is, if things don't change, we implement that taxation and it limits importation, then we are restricted to only Dangote, and the consumer may not have much choice than to buy what is available in the market. I would have loved to be able to have a choice.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, we have, as perhaps many other consumers would also, right now we have the downstream sector, at least one of the players, Oando, adjusting in line with this, right? They are putting a pause, and I think it's also interesting the language that's being used there, a pause. It doesn't indicate any certainty or that it will be something that it will be cast in stone. A strategic pause on petrol import. Do you see other players as well shifting to align with the impending import duty on import duty on imported petroleum products?
It is not an emotional decision for businesses. Once they look at the Naira and Kobo side of it, and it is more profitable to them to go the way Oando is trying to go, more people will align, as simple as that. But if at the end of the day, even after imposing the taxation, there is, the importers still feel that it adds up for them, they can still make profits, then some of them will stay in that import space, as it were, and that will create the competition that we said we're looking for. But as it is, that decision is not emotional. If Oando is going in that direction, if other people also look at the profitability and it is better for them to go in that direction, we will see more people go in that direction.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, it is a business decision, not an emotional one. Thank you so much for your perspective, Gbolahan Olojede, financial expert.
Thanks for having me.
A pleasure.